All right, a little educational chess game. I have white and I'm going to start with the pawn on d4. How will my opponent respond? He plays with the pawn on e6, and ultimately it's an invitation to fall back into a French defense. Because if I play e4, he'll play d5. Me, I prefer to play c4. I'm going to involve the wing pawn in controlling the central d5 square. But he's doing the same thing. He involves his wing pawn in the fight for the center by playing c5. So here the best option is not to take, of course. I don't want to allow him to bring out his bishop. I'm going to play d5, I take space, and I establish myself in his camp. He now plays the pawn to d6. So if I take on e6, how will he take back? Maybe even with the pawn to be able to set up the d5 push afterwards, possibly preceded by bringing out the knight to f6. So I'm going to play knight to c3. He takes, I can take back with the knight and try to exploit this square. But I can also take back with the pawn to have a central pawn's majority. And that's what I'm going to do. Because in the center, I'll have the d5 pawn and now the pawn on e4. So I have more pawns than him in the center, but watch out, he has more pawns on the queen side. He has the a7, b7, and c5 pawns, a majority of pawns on the queen side that I must hinder. And you see he plays a 6, so he intends to play b5. That's why I'm playing a 4. I'm going to try precisely to block this development on the queen side. And so I'll do everything to support the development of my central majority while countering the development of his queenside majority. And him, you know what? Well, normally he's going to do the same thing. He'll do everything to block a5 and to support b5. To each their own plan. And it's not easy for me to resort to the e5 push because there's the pawn, but he can put the knight, sometimes the queen. There are even possibilities of playing g6 and bishop g7, so the bishop controls the long diagonal and indirectly controls the e5 square, so it's not that easy. But for him, it's the same. Playing b5 isn't easy. I have the pawn, the knight, and the bishop. He plays the knight to d7. Maybe he'll want to try to reach the e5 square, or perhaps see if he can get there. Sometimes we also have queens on c7 which support the c4 push. And we could have rook to b8, b5. Pawn takes, the rook supports the pawn. And after this push to c4, the knight can have the c5 square, go attack e4, sometimes use the d3 square as well. And so that's how he'll try to liven up his game on the queen side. Well, I'm looking at the move. Classic knight to f3, we can also play f4. That would help me play e5, but it weakens the defenses of my future kingside castling a bit. On the other hand, the fact of involving the f-pawn in the fight, so I'm not sure of myself. I'm going to simply play knight to f3 for now. He plays knight to e5. So he frees his bishop. There could even be bishop to g4. But here, obviously, I take on e5. That's why I played knight to f3 very quickly. Because on knight e5 I can take, and the pawn recapture will grant me a protected passed pawn in the center. So now how should I continue my game? Well, I'm going to develop bishop e2. I think bishop e2 to prepare kingside castling. He plays bishop d6. There we go. We'll both to castle. But I'll still have to find a plan. Because while I've obtained a central passed pawn, it's very nice, but it's blocked by the bishop on d6. So I have very little chance of unblocking this situation. A protected passed pawn in the center is very interesting in endgames, but here we're far from an endgame, and I'll have to unblock this d6 square, and it's not easy. If I go for the pin on g5, he can play h6, bishop, h4, he can play g5, I go to g3, why not? After all, he'll have compromised his castle position's defense a bit by advancing his pawns. So I'll play bishop g5 to try and exploit the fact that the bishop came to d6. He plays h6, I can even take, actually. And it's even the move I'm looking at now. I wasn't thinking about taking earlier, but now I'm looking at it. Why? Well, I give up the pair of bishops, but then I can play bishop g4 and break his pair of bishops by removing his best bishop, his white square bishop, and leaving him with only his worst bishop, the bishop on the dark square, blocked by his own pawns. Well, not that blocked, though, because after the exchange of light squared bishops, he could play c4 to get the c5 square for his bishop and have that diagonal. But I'm still interested. I think I'm going to do it. I take his knight and I'm going to break his pair of bishops. We'll see if he thinks of the move, c4, then bishop c5. And after all, it's not even certain that it's so good. Maybe the c4 pawn will be too exposed after the push, right? We'll see. He plays queen g5. Well, now he's attacking my bishop twice. Hard to refuse the exchange. And now he'll be able to play c4. That's what I was dreading here. It's hard for me to block it. Even if I play b3, he can play c4. Honestly, my knight especially just isn't playing at all. How to try and get it into the game? Where would it be well positioned here? Well, I don't see it. Maybe the e3 square to control c4 a bit and come to f5. But even on f5, once he's put the bishop on c5, he can play g6. And my knight is pushed back, so it's not that easy. Well, now I'm looking at g3 on c4, h4. I push back his queen and give the light square to my king on g2. Otherwise, I'm also looking at a 5c4 rook, a 4, to attack the c4 pawn. But if he plays bishop c5, I can't take on c4 because of bishop takes f2 check, and he can take my rook afterwards. But I can attack. For example, after a 5c4, rook a4, I could play queen e2 and only then take on c4. That is possible. That's what I'll do, a 5. It gives the 4 square to my rook, but also sometimes to my knight as well, if I want to get into his position a bit. So he plays f5. That was to be expected. I don't want to play f3 at all. The point is not to open the long dark diagonal at all. I prefer to keep the pawn on f2 to defend my castling. f2 and h2, they're not moving. If he takes, after all, knight takes, and my knight has solved its problem. So no, I think he'll play f4. And after f4, he'll look for f3, by the way. And I still don't want to play f3 because of opening the dark diagonal. So I can take... I gain this e4 square. But watch out for that e4 push at any time to open the dark squared bishop. It's not easy. So when he plays f4, what will I play? With that threat on f3, I could play queen f3. But he'll end up moving his queen and playing g5. Then at some point, he'll try to support the g4 push. So on the take on e4, how will he recapture? If he takes with the queen, maybe queen b1, I propose the exchange of queens, and then I plant a knight on e4. And on the take on e4, if he takes with the rook, knight e4 immediately. That's what I'll do. I'll take on f5. I'm preventing this f-pawn from advancing too far. Now he's pressuring f2 and wants to play e4. If I play queen b1 and he plays e4, I can take e4 with queen and win a pawn. By offering a queen trade and looking for the e6 square, the check afterwards. So I play queen b1, I play on light squares, and then I'll plant someone on e4, either the knight or the queen. Let's see what he does with his own queen first. So this queen b1 move isn't obvious to find, but it's very important for me. I've had the rook to a 4 move since I played a 5 as well, taking over the 4th rank, which allows me to control the e4 square. And why not eventually come back to defend my kingside by passing through the 4th rank? So I must do everything to fix his c5 and e5 on black squares so that the d6 bishop can't express itself. And at some point he'll look to sacrifice a pawn to free his bishop. But he still needs to find concrete targets with his bishop, otherwise he simply risks being a pawn down and transitioning into an unfavorable endgame. But that's what will bother me the most anyway. If at some point he sacrifices a pawn to open up his bishop, he plays queen h5. So I can take queen d1, always offering a queen's trade, because he's looking to play e4 to attack h2. In any case, that's his target. If I play queen e4 to fix the pawn, I'll get hit with rook f4 here. But on knight e4, he won't be able to play rook f4 because I'll take his bishop. So knight e4, the knight blocking the isolated pawn on e5. Now that is something you really need to know. The blocking knight It is the best piece, ultimately, to block an isolated pawn, because it blocks the isolated pawn and stays active behind it. The opponent plays rook d8 to defend his bishop. And now what is he going to prepare? He's going to prepare rook f4. I think I will play g3. I like the idea of playing g3. I am setting up my pawn structure on the right color, on the dark squares, to block his play on the dark squares. And I am freeing up some light squares for my own king. If he enters on f3, I can play rook a3. Even with his rook, actually, if he plays rook f3, rook a3, if he takes, I retake with the b pawn and open the b file for my queen. Anyway, I think I will play rook a3, rook b3. He plays bishop e7, attacking d5. Now, if he takes d5, won't he have pin problems? Queen e2, no, he could play queen f7, that is it. Well, then let's go and defend d5, maybe just queen d3. All right, I am playing queen d3. And I need to improve the placement of my rooks. Now, the rook on f1 is still useful for defending f2, but the knight is a monster on defense. It is very well placed for attack, controlling important squares, but also for defense by protecting f2. It is the rook on a1 that needs improving, and the a1 rook will improve either by coming to c1 to attack c5 or by moving to the b file to attack b7. He plays rook f3, attacking my queen. So I was looking at queen c4 to prepare d6 check and the attack on his king. So I am going to play queen c4. Now I'm threatening a fatal discovered attack on the light square. Do you see the difference? He has a dark squared bishop. I have my pawns controlling the dark squares well on defense. But he is quite open on the white squares. And the white squares are not his strong suit. And he has very few pawns, at least in the center and on the king side, defending the light squares. So this d6 threat is lethal for him. And that is why he plays king h8. Now, what am I going to play? I really want to play rook a3 to offer the exchange of rooks. Rook takes, pawn takes. It weakens my pawn structure a bit, but my knight is really very strong in this position. And I don't have much time, so I am going to play rook a3. As long as I have the knight on e4, nothing can happen to me. And my rooks are more passive than his. I am looking for a queen and knight tandem against a queen and bad bishop. I don't need the rooks, so that is why I am offering to exchange them. And after all, on rook takes, pawn takes, it opens the b file and will allow me to play rook b1 to attack b7. The knight on e4, I'm leaving it there on a light square, unassailable, defending the f2 pawn. So he won't find any play on the f file. There, rook to 3. That's well played, I think. I only have 1 minute left, but luckily there's a 3-second increment per move. He retreats to f7. Well, let's play rook b3 and poke at the b7 pawn. The bishop will retreat to defend laterally, I think. I don't want to take the c5 pawn. It's too dangerous to take that c5 pawn. I could end up in a pin on the c file, and he could even trade his dark squared bishop for my knight. I'm not interested. He plays bishop d6, he can play that. Rook b6, no. Come on, I'll play rook b6. If he retreats to c7, rook takes b7. Because he'll block his rook's lateral defense of the b7 pawn. So the bishop is under pressure, the rook too in the face-off, the d8 rook is unprotected, the b7 pawn is weak, and the queen is unprotected too. He has so many protection issues. At some point, this whole thing is going to crack. And I'm really playing against that dark squared bishop. Look at the difference between the knight on e4 and the bishop on d6. One is passive, the other active. I can move the f1 rook, you know. The knight on e4 holds f2. I can move this rook. It's a bit slow, but the idea is to get it to the b3 square to double the attack on b7, in case he manages to defend that b7 pawn well. b7 is still a target, after all. But careful, if the rook leaves the first rank, there will be queen d1 check, king g2, queen f3 check, and he'll find at least a perpetual check. So maybe that's not necessarily the right thing to do. But he's defending well here. I don't really see how to make progress. What can I do? Maybe a quick move like rook e6. I don't have much time, so I'll just play rook e6. It doesn't do much, but it puts pressure on the e5 pawn. And then maybe at some point he'll offer a rook trade. I don't know. And I'd accept, because the fewer rooks on the board, the happier I am. What I need is to handle the queen and knight tandem against the queen and bad bishop. That I know how to do, but with the rooks, I find he manages to defend his position better. So I'm not against a trade of rooks. He plays queen f5. What is he threatening? Nothing for now. I'll go back to b6. Because I don't have any immediate ideas and I'm low on time. So the idea is to play moves quickly and wait for him to give me an opening somewhere. If he doubles up, I could play rook d1, but he goes to f3 to stop me from playing rook d1. He's going to play rook d7 next, right? That's what he wants to do. I'm going to play rook b3. I'll come and push back his queen. The idea is to be able to have access to the d1 square for my rook. For now, he's still preventing me. I'm going to play rook d3 to get the other rook on d1. But there's a queen-to-queen face-off here. Don't I have something I can do, though? He plays rook f3. He's offering the exchange of rooks, so that interests me. And we're going to propose the exchange of rooks. I'm going to play rook d1. I accept the exchange of rooks. Rook takes, maybe queen takes, or rook takes back. I don't know yet. I'm happy to trade rook. Now, I could have forced the rook trade, but I'm trying to improve the rook on f1 while I have the chance. However, I only have 7 seconds, so it's very tough on time. I think I'll put my king on g2. I'm going to push d6 now, right? So he plays queen e2. I play king g2 for now. I don't know if it's well played, but I'm playing it anyway. For now, everything is protected in my position. The b2 pawn is not protected. I didn't see that. All right, I'm playing d6. I have to try to break through the position a bit. Queen b4, queen d5. He's offering a queen's trade. Oh boy, this is difficult. I don't have much time. He's going to play c4 to attack my rook. c4, queen takes, pawn takes, rook d5, trying to attack his pawns. Or not, actually. On c4, maybe just move my rook back. He's offering a queen's trade. I can take the pawn on e5, but my knight is pinned. That's the bad news. He pushes here. I'm going to break the pin for now like this. He's coming to attack me. Queen d4. I'm going to take on c3. He can take on d6, right? Since my rook is pinned. That's what he does, actually. I'm going to play king h3. I'll unpin myself, threatening to take his bishop, but he can give me checks. I'm well aware. He gives me a check. I go back. He's coming to attack me. He plays queen here. I'm going to offer to trade rooks. I don't want any rooks on the board. There we go. Let's just go back and give a quick little check. I play knight e4, attacking his bishop of dark squares. Now I have the queen and knight tandem. The tandem will do the talking. I'm going to play h4. I'll play h5 and try to open the light diagonal. If the pawn moves, knight g5, double check, I take his queen with a fork. I take on g6 with check. All right, queen d7 check. He has to play queen g7. I'll try knight f6 check. The queen is pinned. And yes, queen e8 next. The queen and knight tandem, like I said, and he loses on time. On king h8, queen e8, queen g8, queen takes mate. So he had king g6. But on king g6, queen takes queen check, king takes knight e8, king bishop fork, and I win the endgame with the knight fork. It's the queen and knight tandem. So as you can see, the computer only gives me 80% accuracy. That's not a very good score. I'm sorry, it was a hectic game and I had some time trouble. But you can see in the graph that I still dominated the game for a good while, until 2 dips where the position equalized again. I ultimately failed to convert my advantage. And then there were 2 small peaks because he left his piece hanging twice. You must have seen it during the game and thought, but the bishop is hanging, and I don't take it. I'll explain in the analysis why I didn't take that bishop. First of all, because I didn't see it. But there's a reason why I didn't see it, besides the fact that I was low on time, actually. There's another reason. All right, let me explain. So I played pawn d4, he played pawn e6, c4, he plays c5, using his wing pawn to strike my central pawn. I take the space. And here he doesn't trade. I expected him to trade. Usually black trades immediately, and we recapture. Here he plays d6. Well, I played knight c3, but he trades on the next move. So I recapture, and I have a majority of pawns that can head to the center. He plays knight f6, the push to e4, and then he plays a 6 to activate his queenside majority. And I play a 4 to counter it. He plays knight d7, I bring my knight out to f3, so that on knight e5, I can immediately trade knights and get a central passed pawn, which will be blocked fairly quickly, since as soon as I play bishop e2, he plays bishop d6, blocking me. Kingside castling, then I played bishop g5, he attacks my bishop, questioning what I'll do with it, and I take his knight. I take it because I know I can break his pair of bishops right after by removing his best bishop, the white square's bishop, the one that works with his central pawn structure, which is blocked on dark squares, whereas my own bishop of the white squares was rather hindered on the diagonals by the presence of the blocked e4 and d5 pawns. So here he plays queen g5, but I don't know if you remember, during the game I told you I was looking at the variation bishop takes, queen takes, and it's true that it's possible, but I had considered the move of 5. I mentioned it to you. And that's interesting because I'm going to play rook f4 to attack this pawn. And even if I play rook c8, rook f4 followed by queen e2, and in reality the c4 pawn can quite quickly become a target. So in the position he didn't exchange the bishops, he played queen g5, but now he's forcing me to exchange them. And I play f5 to take back this f4 square. He plays f5, opening up the file. Right here, I decide to take. It's not easy to know exactly what to do, because if I let this pawn advance, it'll go to f4, then f3. So I preferred to take this pawn. He takes back with the queen, and here I offered a queen exchange. The computer prefers queen b3 to go and attack b7 specifically. But I played queen b1, looking for an exchange of queens. He refuses and plays queen h5. But then, placing my queen on b1 was also to take control of the e4 square, of course. And now I have a knight against a bad bishop. He comes to defend his bishop. I play g3 to take away the f4 square, so his rook can't go to f4 and harass my knight. He retreats his bishop to a7. Queen d3 now. He plays his rook to f3, queen c4, and he plays king h8 to get out of the queen-king alignment. In the position, I played rook a3 to look for a rook exchange. The computer prefers rook e1 or rook d1. But my idea was that if he takes, I take back with the pawn. Sure, I have doubled pawns, but I open this file for my rook on f1 to go attack the b7 pawn. And so I like that, especially since the queen and knight are still dominant in the position. His dark-squared bishop doesn't really have any play. It's blocked by c5 and e5. And as for my castling, it's like reinforced concrete on the dark square. That's why I'm playing rook a3. It's a decision that might not be the best from a computer analysis standpoint, but from a human perspective, it's very interesting. Because my opponent wants to keep his pieces to maintain attacking chances. He doesn't want to exchange in this position because my advantage will persist. It might be a bit smaller, but it'll perhaps be more stable with less counterplay for him, actually. So it's a very human decision to play rook a3 here. He retreats to f7. I play rook b3, attacking b7. He plays bishop d6. Rook b6, bishop f8. Now I have an advantage of almost 3 points. According to the computer, it's a huge advantage, almost a piece up, but I can't find how to convert it. And so I'm going in circles a bit with my calculations, and I don't have much time left. At this point in the game, I only have about 50 seconds left. The computer says that d6 should be played here. We advance, the pawn is well protected by the rook and knight, and we open the light squared diagonal. And looking at it now, of course, I want to play d6, especially since it restricts his dark squared bishop more and more. But due to lack of time, I play rook a6. When I play rook a6, I only have 28 seconds left. So now I'm forced to play very, very quickly. He plays queen f5. I go back to b6. He plays queen f3. Now it's survival for me. I just have to not ruin the position by playing very fast. Queen g4, rook d3. That's also the problem with commenting on games. It's that commenting takes time, because sometimes I explain things to you that I've perfectly understood immediately, but I take several seconds to explain them to you, and that puts me in time trouble in this position. Rook f3, so I play rook d1. He takes, I take back. And queen e2, he infiltrates, and there I absolutely didn't see that he was attacking the b2 pawn, not at all. I thought he'd go for checks, so I play king g2. I didn't see he was attacking the b2 pawn, so how to defend it? Maybe by advancing it first. Not with rook d2 because I'd lose my queen, so there's knight d2. But the idea of the knight on e4 is that it's a good blocker. I think the best is to play b3 actually, and on queen e1 check, king g2, and he can't touch anything in my position. Oh wait, there's still the pawn on a5. So I'm still going to lose a pawn in the process. That's why knight d2 was the computer's favorite move, because there I wouldn't lose anything. But I don't want to move this knight back. Anyway, I didn't see it. I played king g2, and I didn't see the loss of the b2 pawn. That said, even with the pawn down, the computer still gives me a slight advantage. So it suggests winning the pawn back with knight takes c5. And I don't want that. I don't want to, because I don't want to give him the chance to exchange his bishop of black squares for my knight. And on knight takes c5, you also have to look at the pin possibilities, but the advance of the d6 pawn is winning for me? No. What bothered me most was the exchange of the bishop for the knight. I wanted to play this queen and knight tandem against the bad bishop. So I played d6, he plays queen b5, he offers to exchange queens, and there I missed the winning sequence I should have taken. But I still want to keep my queen and knight tandem, and I don't have time to calculate the combinations. But otherwise I should have taken and then taken on c5. He can't take with the bishop because of knight takes b7. And if he takes with the rook, then I exchange rooks. Rook takes, bishop takes, knight takes b7. I attack his bishop. And I also have the passed pawn here. And my king centralizes much faster than his. So it's 4 pawns against 4, but I have a more dangerous pawn than his, a knight that immediately attacks his bishop, and the king can centralize. For example, if he plays bishop b8, I centralize, and in case of b4, I centralize. And if the pawn comes to b3, anyway, I play king d3, and I'll eliminate that pawn no matter what. But in the position, as I told you, I don't want the queen exchange. I play queen d5, he plays queen c6, he wants the queen exchange, and I have to accept it. In fact, every time I should take on c6, but I don't. And I take on e5, I want to keep the queens. And so then he plays c4. He could have done bishop takes d6, after which I had to move my queen because my knight is pinned, so I can't take his bishop anyway. He plays c4. I play rook d5 to prevent this pin on the long white diagonal. He plays rook e8. He attacks my queen. I go to d4. He plays c3. I take his pawn. He takes back with the bishop. So there I can't take because of the pin. So I try to unpin myself. But obviously, he's going to come and give me checks. He comes to c8. I go back to g2. And there he plays bishop c5. And I can take his bishop. And I didn't see it. So I have 9 seconds in the position. I could have seen it, but I didn't imagine he could leave me the bishop. So why don't I take the bishop first? Because I have little time. When we're low on time, we all make mistakes. Also because with so little time, I can't imagine my opponent just giving me a bishop. So when he plays bishop c5, I just assume that I can't take it. And then I had this idea of playing the queen and knight tandem, so I tell myself I'll move back with my queen and wait for the chance to play rook d8 at the right time to trade off his rook. In fact, as I said, I want to trade rooks. And once it's just queen and knight, I know how to put him in trouble. So here I play queen d3 quite quickly. I think I only took a second or two to play queen d3. Well, obviously I missed winning the bishop. It's clear that I should have taken it. He plays queen e6 there. I still should take the bishop, but I play rook d8. That's my goal. I want to trade the rooks. So he takes, queen takes back, check, king h7, queen d3, check, g6. And here I know I have to break down the defenses on the white squares, meaning the pawn g6. So I push h4 to play h5. If he plays h5 himself, I'd have knight e4 attacking his bishop, maybe knight g5 later with king and queen forks. That also looked interesting to me. Oh wait, I didn't play h4 right away. I started with knight e4. I'm attacking his dark squared bishop, which retreated to a 7, and now h4, but it's basically the same thing. He plays bishop b8, the push to h5, now I'm breaking his defenses. Bishop c7, take on g6, queen takes g6, and now queen d7, check, a fork. The queen comes back to avoid losing the piece. Knight f6 check, as you saw, and now he's going to lose on time. Because what can he do? The queen can't take, of course, she's pinned. If he goes to h8, there's queen e8, queen g8, and queen takes. The queen and knight tandem finally ended up making my opponent pay dearly for this position. And if he goes to g6, then there's queen takes, king takes, knight e8, the fork, and we easily win the endgame. Well, that was an eventful game on the theme of the queen and knight tandem against the bad bishop. And I could have taken that bad bishop several times, but the lack of time, and especially when you're focused on another plan, you sometimes miss huge things. You must have been shouting it at the screen, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments, but that's the game. That's how it goes. Well, I hope the video was instructive nonetheless. There were many interesting things about the structure, the difference between the blocking knight and the bad bishop, and controlling certain squares. I found it very interesting. And we'll see each other again soon for new adventures. Leave a thumbs up, comment, share the video, support the channel. Goodbye, everyone.